there's a lot of surprises in Faded, and a lot of new territory is covered. I think that readers who enjoyed the Immortals saga will enjoy, the mystical world that I've created and the romance and the adventure. But I've used a very, very different mythology for Faded. It's a lot of shamanism and Native American lore. It takes place in New Mexico, so it's a whole new location. And the main characters are quite different from the characters in the Immortals series. Dare Santos had a very glamorous life as a teen. She grew up on movie sets. Her mother was a Hollywood makeup artist. So she's very well traveled. She's very sophisticated. She's sort of cynical and jaded. And her journey, she discovers that she's a seeker and she has to move to this town in New Mexico to train for her destiny as a seeker. She sort of has an obstacle to overcome there as well as an emotional obstacle. The character of Dare is really pretty fictional. She's not based on me at all. Maybe a fantasy version of me. I mean, when I was 16, I would have loved to have had her life, to grow up, all over the world and on movies, different movie sets and meeting celebrities and things like that. She's also much braver than I am. And of course she gets to date the very dreamy Dace Whitefeather, so that's all pure fantasy. The character of her grandmother, Paloma, is somewhat inspired by my own grandmother that I only met once in my life, but I remember her as being just this really beautiful, gentle soul. And so I've definitely instilled those qualities in Paloma, and the relationship that Dare forms with her grandmother is sort of aspirational for me. It's sort of the relationship that I wish that I could have had with my own grandmother. Oh, I hoped to be back so soon, but I didn't expect to be back so soon. It's funny because the Immortals series is published in over 36 languages and sold in over 50 countries, and the Brazilian fans were always the ones I heard from the most. So last year, when my first visit to Rio for the book fair and then on to São Paulo, Curitiba, Salvador, and Brasilia, and all these other places, I was so amazed to meet them in person and see that they're just as warm and friendly and wonderful as they are when I'm talking to them on Twitter and Facebook. So I can say that this year's visit, it just instills that. I was so excited to return and get to see a lot of the Brazilian readers who I met on my last visit here a year ago, and then some new ones that have made it to the signings and introduced themselves. And it remains one of the highlights of my career, and I think it always will. Oh, I have lots of plans and ideas for other series. I have a very thick file filled with ideas, and I don't know what will come next. I have ideas for more paranormal series for teens. I have ideas for contemporary standalones. I have ideas for more adult books, more middle grade books. I'm just gonna wait and see where I am when I finish Horizon, the final book in the Soul Seeker series, and just sort of see what calls to me the most. I like to write about things that really interest me and that I care passionately about, so we'll see which idea screams the loudest, and that's the one I'll follow. I probably revise my books 20 times or more before I hand it into my editor. The hardest thing about writing any book, it's always the same thing. From my first book to, I'm working on my 20th novel right now, and that is, I can see the picture in my head so clearly. I almost feel like I'm sort of taking notes on the movie that I see in my head. The challenge is always in translating this picture that I can see so clearly into words on a page. Oh, I think the role of bloggers is really important in the book industry, and I think it's amazing that these people do this as a labor of love. their love of books and literature and wanting to share that with the world. I think it's extraordinary. And it's a fairly new development, and I'm amazed to see how quickly it's grown and how it's built this sort of worldwide community that feels really quite small. You know, it's sort of joined all these lovers of books and literature together, and I think it's just extraordinary and wonderful. And I wish we had had something like this when I was a teen. I would have loved to have been a teen blogger.